Tonight's class, the subject that I picked for tonight's class has to do with the energy that we experience this week. You know, it's fascinating that everything that we go through during each week, it's already been created, been assigned for that special week. So whatever we experience, whatever we go through, it's not by coincidence. It actually was designed from day of creation. And that's the reason we read that section of the Torah on Shabbat to help us to overcome the challenges that comes with that week. And the section that we read this week, it's called Shelach Lecha actually, which has a very, very fascinating story. One of the most controversial, strange stories of the Torah. And before I get into the story of the secret behind the story, I have to share with you that this is not the story that happened some 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. This is our story today. This is what we go through every day, especially this week. The story happens in the first year that the Bnei Israel left Egypt and they reached the border of Israel. Imagine this whole almost approximately 6 million people traveling in the desert for about a year, and they reach the border of Jordan River, which is right by Israel, and they're about to enter the land of Israel. It's interesting to know that during the first year, what they experienced was leaving Egypt, experiencing all the miracles that they came during that first year, which was the splitting of the Red Sea, having manna, the water that, the fountain of water that was traveling because of Miriam, the miracle of manna, the food, all these amazing stories and miracles they experience. And they've already met their biggest enemy, which is called the nation of Amalek. And in a nutshell, the nation of Amalek, according to Kabbalah, it's not your normal nation of enemies. It's part of our consciousness. It's part of our way of thinking, which creates doubt and uncertainty. We see that when Israelites have doubt that God is with them, and all of a sudden the Torah mentions that this nation of Amalek attacks them. So we learn in Kabbalah that Amalek, just the word Amalek, every time we hear the word Amalek or the nation of Amalek, it's not referring to an outside nation, it's not an outside country or an army. It's actually part of our consciousness that injects uncertainty in us, the doubt in us. So they experience all that. They experience being harmed by this energy consciousness. Now they reach, as I said, right by the border of Israel, and they want to step into the border of Israel. And I would like to read a section, a translation in English, which is not a perfect translation, but I'd like to read it for you, and I want to emphasize on the details of the story of what we read. Then I'm going to read a section of the Zohar for you. Then we're going to relate it to what is it for me today. Sounds good? Because we're here, we all have issues, we all have challenges, we all have difficulties, we all have blessing, we all have things that we don't like necessarily, things we want to change, things we want to achieve. And that's why we study Torah, and it's not simply a religion. It's not simply book of history, of stories of some amazing prophets and patriots, but it's our story, and what is it for me today? This is what I learned from my master, Rabbi Berg, who always said, what is it for me today? And that's why we're here. So the section starts with, I'm going to read it in English, not the whole section, part of it, and I want you to pay attention to the details of the story. Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, send forth men, if you please, if you want, and let them spy out the land of Canaan that I give to the children of Israel. You know what, let me explain what's really going on at the beginning of this section. Why it was necessary to send spies to this land? Imagine for close to over 200 years we were in Egypt, we were a slave, right? If you look at the literal meaning of the story, we were a slave, we've been treated really bad, we had nothing, and then we leave Egypt, and God tells us that I'm sending you to this land of milk and honey, this wonderful land of Israel. And 1 year we're in desert, we're traveling, 6 million people with animals and whatever you could imagine. And we are right at the border. Imagine like you want to go to New York, right? You travel to New York, you're in the airport. Before you walk into Manhattan, you want to send spies to see how Manhattan is? Kind of doesn't make sense. If you left all these people, why you want to keep them in desert, regardless of how it is in Israel? This is the promised land. Let us go. So what is this hesitation about? And why God is telling Moshe that send these men if you please, if you want. It's okay with me. As if Moses wants to spy out the land. Moses, there is something that Moses wants to see. And we all know that Moshe, never reached Israel. He never made it to Israel. He was always outside of Israel. And one way of thinking is that how come Moshe never made it to Israel? He never made it to Israel. Why? And there are stories that because he got mad, he hit the stone, and God says, you're not going to make it. But in Kabbalah, we understand, and I like to actually read it for you from the Zohar, at the beginning of the Zohar of this week. I'm going to read it because it's important, then I'll try to explain it. It says, Moses was the aspect of sun, which is Ze'er Anpin, and he wished to enter the land of Israel. The Holy One, blessed be He, told him, Moses, when the sunlight arrives, the moon, which is Malchut, is included in it, and her quality is invisible. Now you are the sun, and if you enter the land, which is the secret of the moon, meaning Malchut, how can the sun and the moon stand together? If the moon shines only when the sun is gathered in, however, now you cannot enter the land, and if you wish to know about it, send you men, meaning for your sake, so that you shall know. So, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is explaining to us that there is a discussion between Moshe Rabbeinu, between Moses, and God. And God is telling Moshe that you cannot enter the land of Israel because you represent the sun. You represent the sun. And the land of Israel represents the moon. And because when the sun shines, the moon cannot show itself. We only see the light of moon when the sun is not shining. Otherwise, you cannot see the light of the moon. So he tells Moshe, because you represent the sun, and if you go into the land of Israel, because the moon cannot shine itself, it's not proper. And if you want to see it for yourself, send the spies to see what I'm telling you, it's proper. Now let me explain this to you because it's very important and may remove some of the misconception of why Moshe never made it to Israel. The light of Moshe Rabbeinu, his light, his power, it's compared to sun. Why? Because Moshe represents what we call Ze'er Anpin, the six Sefirot that is between Keter Chochmah Bina and Malchut. Malchut represents our physical world, which is the moon. At one time, when God created the sun and the moon, in Genesis, the moon had its own light. Moon wasn't dark. Moon, like the sun, had the power of shining. But then the light of the moon was taken, the sun started shining, and then we know that at the time of Mashiach, the moon itself will find its light. The moon itself will shine again. I know it's a little bit complicated. Let me make it easier. When can we create light? When there is darkness, right? If you light up a candle during the day, does that candle has any impact? Very little, not much. But at night, you light up a candle, it brightens the whole room. So as long as there is tremendous amount of light, the candle, which is us, are not capable of showing the light that we can create. So in order for us to show our light, we need to be in a situation that there is darkness. So if Moshe Rabbeinu, which represents Ze'er Anpin, which represents the sun, all the light that comes from the sun, which is the light of sustenance, the light of blessings, the light of health, the light of fulfillment. If Moshe comes, then there is not much we can do. He will steal the show. You see what I mean? I can only show myself if somebody better than me is not in the room. If somebody better than you, more powerful than you, is one room, he's going to shine, you're not going to shine. Unless he leaves the room, then you can show yourself. So, God is telling Moshe that if you enter in the land of Israel, people cannot do their tikkun. They cannot create light because you represent all the light. There wouldn't be anything for people to represent, to do. You is still the show for the people. People need to create their own light. People need to create their own, to overcome what they need to overcome so they can shine. It's like a father cannot go with his son to take a test for him. The father has to leave and the son has to take the test by himself. Otherwise, the son can never become anybody because the father is there. Does it make sense? So the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu cannot go to the land of Israel, it's because people need to do their own thing. People need to do their own, create their own light. So if you go with them, it's like a father goes with his son to the school. He says, you cannot go. They have to go themselves. When can Moshe Rabbeinu go to the land? When the moon itself has found its light. When do we find our light? Time of Mashiach. When the time of Mashiach comes, every one of us is going to shine so brightly, we're going to have our own light. Mashiach is going to be here. He has his own light. But at that time, we have all reached to a level of consciousness that every one of us is going to be shining beautifully. So, I'm going to read this section again for you. It says, says, how can the sun and the moon stand together? You cannot enter the land. Now you cannot enter the land. You can only enter the land when the time of Mashiach comes. When is the time of Mashiach? When we see Etz HaChaim, when we see the tree of life. The tree of life that was in Garden of Heaven represents the time of Mashiach. He says the only time you can walk into Israel, be with the Israelite, is when they have done their tikkun, reached their potential, create all the lights that they're supposed to create, because now they have their own light, so even when you walk into Israel, they still are shining, and that's why they say during the time of Mashiach, moon is going to shine by itself too. Okay, so that's one thing. Let me continue now with the Torah again. This concept is clear, that why Moshe cannot walk with you. It's like, again, it's a battle that I need to overcome. I cannot bring my father to do the fight for me. I cannot have Moshe do my work. I have to do my work. I have to manifest my own light. And as long as Moshe is standing by me, no matter how much light I create, it's not going to show itself. Okay. So why Moshe wants to send these people to Israel? To see what? To spy what? And let's see what Moshe tells these 12 people, these 12 head of the tribe. So it says, Moses sent them forth from the wilderness of Paran at Hashem's command. They were all distinguished men, head of children of Israel. They were. So he selects 12 princes of the 12 tribes. That means every one of us. That means every one of us. Because we are from these 12 tribes. So he picks the best of each tribe, which represents the best of us. So we know that there are 12 tribes, there are 12 signs of zodiac. That means from each aspect of humanity, he picked up 12, and they were all there. And they are the names. And I'm going to mention 2 names, which is the topic of tonight's secret. One is from the tribe of Yehuda. And this is a secret again. Yehuda. Yehuda, the name of Yehuda, which is one of the sons of Yaakov, it spells what? Yud Kei Vav Kei and a Dalet, which represents every Yahudi. That means we have the light of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the light of God, and then we have an extra Dalet. Dalet is the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which represents selfishness, which represents body, which represents a desire to receive. So the difference between a Yahudi and God is a person, an entity, who has all the light force of God, plus a desire to receive for himself alone. Ego, selfishness, body. Make sense? So from the tribe of Yehuda, Kalev, son of Yefuneh. Yefuneh. Now, what's so amazing is that Kalev, father's name, is not Yefuneh. That's strange again, when you pay attention. Kalev's father is someone else. Why the Torah is calling Kalev the son of Yefuneh? And Yefuneh means someone, let me find the proper word, someone not from this group. So Kalev is the son of an entity that doesn't belong to this group of 12. Someone who is
like
different.
Outsider.
I'm sorry?
Outsider.
Kind of outsider. Someone who looks different at things. Someone who see outside of the box. Does it make sense?
Different perception.
And then there are 10 names of the different tribe, and the last one, it says, these are the name of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. Moses called Hoshua, son of Nun, Joshua. So Moses sends his assistants, Hoshua, with them, and when he sends them, he changes his name from Hoshua to Joshua. He adds the Yud to name of his assistants. He actually, when he sends them, he gives them an extra energy force of the letter Yud, which is all the light force of God. So Joshua is joining this group of spies. Why spies? Hopefully I can get to it at the end of the class. But before he sent Joshua, he gives Joshua a gift, a power, an energy force of the letter Yud, which represents the Chokhmah and Binah of the light force of God. So he's safe, he's protected, he's been clouded by the light force. Let me continue. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and he tells them, ascend here in the south and climb the mountain. Now every letter, there is a secret to it. I don't know how much we can dwell and get into every word of the Torah, which is amazing, but just pay attention. See the land. How is it? And the people that dwell in it. Is it strong or weak? Is it a few or numerous? And how is the land in which it dwells in it? Is it good or is it bad? And how are the cities in which it dwells? Are there trees in it or not? Are there trees in it or not? What kind of a question is it? Now, I mean, doesn't Moshe know that there is trees in the land of Israel?
Yeah.
Is this Moshe wants to know if there is any trees in the land of Israel? Now, let me read another section of the Zohar that explains what is the secret behind section 17 in the Zohar. Here it says. Section 10 in the Zohar is this week's parasha. It says, as soon as Moses began to send out the spies, what did he say to them? Whether or not is there a tree in there? What is the reason that he said this? Do you think that he did not know if there was a tree there? This is Rabbi Shimon questioning. However, this is what Moses said. If there is a tree in it, Moshe is saying, I know that I will enter the land. What tree? This is the tree of life. It was not there, but rather in the terrestrial Garden of Eden. Moses said to himself, if that tree is in it, I will enter there. If not, I cannot enter. Moshe wants to know if the consciousness of Mashiach, if the Etz HaChaim, if this tree that it was heaven, it's in there. Because if it's in there already, that means people have reached their tikkun. Now the moon can have its own light, so Moshe can enter it. If they don't see the tree of life, if they don't see the Etz HaChaim, that means it's not the time yet. It's not the time of Mashiach yet. People haven't done their job yet. So I cannot go in. I cannot do their test. So when they reach the land of Israel, Let me make it simple. Moshe said, God, let me go with them to this land. I want to go with them. God tells them, you know what? I would love you to go, but people are not ready, because if you go, they cannot do their tikkun. They cannot have their own light. So just like a good father that has to send his child to school to become somebody, you can only send them there and stay outside. Unless they have reached this state of consciousness, which we call the consciousness of Estachaim or Mashiach, now they reach that, and if they reach that, you can go. So the question is, if these 12 people, if these 12 spies, they go to Israel, and they see the tree of life, they see Estachaim, that means if they change themselves, job would have been finished. Torah would have been finished right there. Everything would have been finished. So he's sending this spy to see how are they going to react. What they going to see. What their perception is going to be. Are they going to come out and tell and bring a report, we saw Estachaim. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Right? Then Moshe would say, all right, you did the job, let's all go in. But if they don't see the tree of life, they haven't seen the big picture, they haven't seen the reality, they're still stuck in what we call Malchut, the moon that still depends on the light of the sun to become somebody, and it's not the time yet. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. So far, so good. And then, when they come back, let me read the report that they give. When do they leave, by the way? They leave on the 17th day of Tammuz. The first 17th day of the month of Tammuz. They stay there for 40 days. Why 40 days? What is this 40? 40 years in desert, 40 years here. What is this 40? 40 represents a complete circle, a completion of a situation. Where is it coming from? The name of God has 4 letters of Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei. Each letter has 10 Sefirot within it, 10 energy consciousness within it. So Yud Kei Vav Kei represents a complete force of creation, a complete force of consciousness, of an energy force. So every time we hear the name 40, represents a complete circle, a complete entity. So they had 40 days corresponding to this phenomenon energy of the Yud Kei Vav Kei being manifested in the physical world. I'm just trying to make you understand that there is nothing unimportant in the Torah. They returned from spying out the land at the end of the 40 days. At the end of the 40 days is when? Is the 9 of Av. They left 17th day of the Tammuz. 40 days after is the 9 of Av. They went and came to Moses and to Aharon and to the entire assembly of the children of Israel and brought back the report to them and the entire assembly, and they showed them the fruit of the land. So they go there, they spy for 40 days, they come back. It's interesting to know that when they leave and they start going to Israel, now Joshua has this magic power because his name has changed, he has an extra yud. So he's kind of protected, he has understanding in a different level. His consciousness is way up there. Kalev understands that there is a challenge. I have a challenge ahead. There's something very important that I need to do. I need assistance. I need help. What does he do? He goes to Hebron. He goes to the cave of Machpelah, where Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov are buried. And he prays there. And he asks them for assistance. But let's move on. It's sweet. Maybe another class we'll talk about what was he doing. So they report to him and said, so they bring the fruits. And let me explain this phenomenon of the fruit too. You know, they go and they see these beautiful fruit trees. Grape. One of the things they bring is grape. And it says in the Zohar, actually I read it, it says that when they brought the trees, when they brought the fruit, they didn't bring the best fruit of Israel. There were better branches of the grape. They picked the not so great branches, but it was so amazingly big and huge. They cut the branches, but it was so heavy, even though it wasn't the best branches of the grape, that these 10 people out of the 12, they wanted to lift the branches, and they couldn't. The branches were so heavy that they couldn't lift it. So who lifted the branches of the grape? Caleb and Joshua. What did they do? They tell each other, I hold one side, you hold the other side, we lift it up. And they lift branch up and they bring it. So who's carrying the grape? Caleb and Joshua. Hopefully I'll get to what the details of how they did it and what was going on. It's beautiful, but it's beyond what I'm trying to achieve tonight. And why do they bring the fruit first? You know, it says here again, Rabbi Shimon explains that when people want to lie, when they want to deceive you, when they want to lie to you, they don't come and lie to you from the beginning. They say something that you like first. You know, they say somebody wants to get something from you. First he's going to say, you look great today. You know, it's a truth, but they tell you something to please you. So the first thing that they said, by the way, we brought the fruits. These are the grape of Israel. And then they continue, we arrived at the land to which you send us. And indeed, it flows with milk and honey. What is the secret of milk and honey? Why do we call Israel milk and honey? Do we know the secret? Do everybody knows?
We take it for granted.
Yes, milk and honey, if you look at these two phenomena, honey is sweet, but it goes through a system to become sweet. When the bee goes and grasps what it needs to do from the flowers, picks it up, works on it, it goes through a process to become sweet. So Israel represents a process that if you go through, the end result would be sweet. Milk is white, is sweet, is nourishing. But where is it coming from? It comes from the blood, which is red. Not good to eat. You're not supposed to eat the blood. But when the blood goes through a process, it becomes something that becomes nourishing. It becomes kindness. It becomes chesed. It becomes wonderful. So they say, yes, this land is the land of milk and honey, because milk and honey represents something that you work on, and throughout the process, it becomes sweet, it becomes wonderful. And this is its fruit. The people that dwell in the land is powerful. The cities are very greatly fortified. And we also saw there the offspring of the giants. Amalek dwells in the area of the south. Hittites and Jebustes and Amorite dwells on the mountain. And all these groups represents a different consciousness, which again is beyond this class. and the Canaanite dwells in the sea and on the bank of the Jordan. So these 10 people out of the 12, they bring a report, which I liked. I learned it from my teacher, Ruthie Rosenberg. She says, you know, this concept of fake news these days? We hear fake news.
Fake news.
You know, fake news. What they brought back was fake news. Is fake news true? Maybe. Is it exaggerated? Yes. Do they present it in a proper way? No. Is there an agenda behind it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Do they make the story bigger than what it is? Yes. Do they paint it the way
To fit their agenda.
to fill their agenda? Absolutely. It's the news, but it's the fake news. It's not the real news. So these 10 people, they bring the fake news. They give their own assumption. They give their own negative perception of the Israelite. They say, remember again, Moshe says, how is the land? Who lives there? But so Moshe is asking about what's going on today. What's going on today in Israel? But what do they bring? Tomorrow. We cannot deal with these people. They're giants. Oh, Amalek. They're going to be there. So Caleb silenced the people towards Moses and said, we shall surely ascend and conquer it if we surely do it. And this section of the Torah, and you know what happened? We know what happened, right? Everybody knows the story of what happened right after. God gets very disappointed. He tells them, you know what, you guys don't deserve to go to Israel. And it takes them 39 years after that first year to go back to Israel. And all the people that were at that time with Moses, they all vanished of those group, of those 600,000 men over 20. They all died. A new generation went to Israel with the exception of 2 people, Caleb and Joshua. Everybody else perished. Everybody else got destroyed. And then this section of the Torah doesn't quite finish here. And Torah goes on to explain the power of Sisit in this section and the power of Shabbat. And it has another strange story of a person who goes and pick up woods on Shabbat, which God doesn't like it. What did Caleb see? What did he see? Why his perception was different? We understand Joshua had a support system of God. He couldn't go wrong because he was with God. So there is one huge hint at every one of us that as long as we stay with the life force of God, we have no fear. We see the reality. Nothing scares us. We don't have to mention anything. We don't have to fight. He will fight for you. As it says in the Torah. You stay with me, you let me fight for you, I'll fight for you. If we don't become reactive, if we don't become negative, if we stay holy, if we stay proper, He would do the whole thing for us. We have nothing to fear. What these 10 people brought, they brought fear of tomorrow. Fear of tomorrow. This is sometimes how the religious people who want to control people, they use fear. We see that. We see that in different religions. In even our own religion, God forbid. When they want to control you, they scare you. They inject fear in you, the fear of tomorrow. Oh, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. Oh, if you don't do that, this is going to happen. It's the fear of tomorrow. What do they say? They say, it's too much for us. We cannot handle these people. Israel is difficult. Let's just stay in the desert. Why should we go to Israel? Why should we bother ourselves with challenges of the land of Malchut? Who wants to go to nourish the moon when we have the sun? We have Moshe here. We have the tablets here. We have everything here. We are the 12 tribes. We are the head of these 12 families. I got my house in Bel Air, right? I have everything here. Why should I bother myself?
Comfort zone.
I am in my comfort zone. I have everything I needed. Sun is shining. Moshe is here. I don't need to do anything. We got everything. I got my money. I got my family. I'm in a comfort zone. I have a good house. Why bother? That was their mentality of these 10 people who didn't want to deal, who didn't want to go through the challenges, who didn't want to face the challenges. They saw it, they run away. They even made things worse than what it is. They created fake news. Caleb says, no, we can go. If God says we can do it, we can do it. This is wonderful. Let's do it. Let's go. When they go pick up these branches of the grape, the reason these 10 people couldn't pick up the grape, because they didn't want to pick it up. They didn't want to pick it up. It was too heavy. It was too messy. Who wants to do it? So it says the consciousness of the grape became so distressed, they became actually too heavy for them. I hope you understand the secret behind this. Imagine these dead branches of fruits are on the ground. They went, they cut the branches. It's on the ground. The branches of this grape, leaves, grapes, it's on the ground. 10 people. Could they lift it up? Yes. Did they want to lift it up? Nah. Why? Who wants to lift it up, carry it all this during this property and bring it? Who cares? Right? So the consciousness, it says in the Zohar, the consciousness of the grape got so disappointed from these people, they became even heavier than they were. So even when they tried, it was too heavy. Caleb and Joshua said, no, we can lift it up. They went, he said, you take one side, I take one side, you take that, we lift it up. Then magically, the consciousness of the grape became lighter. And it was easy for them to lift them up. Not only they lift them up, they carried it all the way back to where the camp was. You understand the secret? When I think, oh, reading the Zohar is too much, I can't understand it. I don't understand it. Why should I bother myself? This language of the Zohar is so difficult for me to understand. So if I even push myself now to read and understand it, I won't understand it. Because the Zohar itself is not going to let me understand it. But if I tell myself, if this book was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and if it's in my access, regardless of how hard it is, I'll understand it. I'll understand some part of it. You know what will happen magically? The Zohar itself is going to talk to me, make it easier for me to understand it. When I think it's heavy for me to pick this flower, this beautiful orchid that... Could you ask that? Oh, you're here. She brought it. I can look at it in two different ways. I can say, it's too heavy, it's too much of a problem for me to take home. Right? Most probably is, this flower is going to die on me, even if I take it home, because I didn't appreciate it. I might forget it, I might leave it in my car, because I don't appreciate it. But if I truly appreciate it, I'm, that's the Shema Daran, because it's beautiful. So nice of you to bring this flower. Then I take it this home, and this flower is going to talk to me for more than its natural life. have the oil, that oil that was in Bet HaMikdash, that was supposed to last for 1 day, lasted 8 days. How did the miracle happen? How did the miracle happen that Joshua and Caleb could lift these heavy branches of grape? Because they wanted to. They said, I'll do my best. I'll do my best, whatever it takes. And then the moment I put my consciousness in doing what I need to do, that thing would assist me to do what I want to do with it. If I tell myself, if I study, I'll become a doctor. If I truly, I know it's difficult, but I can do it. Then this slang of the Nike, that nothing is impossible. Nothing would be impossible for me. Because now the energies will work for me. When I want to achieve something, when I see a challenge and I go, God gave me this challenge, I can definitely handle it. It might be difficult. It might need a process for me to change it from blood to become milk. That's what it is. That's what Israel represents. That's what the word of Malchut represents. There is a reward after the process. There is a reward after working hard. There is a reward after the right consciousness. What blocks us? The fear. The fear of tomorrow. What blocks us from achieving is the fear of tomorrow. You know what's so amazing these days when you watch the news, they say breaking news. You know, sometimes it really bugs me when I watch the news, especially here in the United States. The morning, you wake up in the morning and you turn on the TV and show you, oh, there was a tornado in Georgia. There was an earthquake, God forbid, in that place. There was a bomb exploded in London. News. And you know, the man is right calling it fake news. Because there's so many amazing stories that it may not be so exciting to hear or to watch, but it's happening all the time in the world. People who do not want to deal with today's life, they consider, oh, life is getting so difficult. The world is going crazy. Do we hear this thing? The world is going crazy. There is a global warming. There is ice out melting. People are running away from God. You see what's happening in Iran, what's happening in Syria. But at the same time, look what's happening with the technology. Look what's happening in Africa. Look what some great countries is doing for other people. Look what's happening in the world of health and science. Everything is improving. There are more people being spiritual than any other time in the world. But what do they want to show you? They want to show you something that attracts you and distresses you and scares you. And that's what we draw to. The difficulties, the things that we cannot overcome. The bad news, the fake news. The difference between Caleb and the 10 other souls that were there, Caleb thought out of box. Caleb's perception was different. He saw the good. He saw the life. He saw the opportunities. He got into the realm of nothing is impossible. It's going to be all right. It's going to be good. Tomorrow is going to be good. When we worry, we don't worry necessarily for what it is right now. We all worry about what tomorrow is going to bring. And we think tomorrow is either black or white. It's not. It's something between. It's not tomorrow black and white. Yes, everything, God forbid, difficult could happen. But everything wonderful can happen too. And that's where I want to invest my consciousness. That's where I want to be. Yes, challenges are difficult. Yes. Yes. Difficulties bring stress. But you know, stress doesn't kill us. The thought of stress kills us. The stress itself is actually good. It's positive. But the thought of stress, the thought of fear, is what kills us. It blocks us. It doesn't help us move forward. We'd rather to stay and not to get into the fight, not to get into the pool. It's easier not to take a chance, stay where we are. You know, these names, this name of the tribes that is mentioned in the Torah represents each different level of negative consciousness that me and you could have. When they say there is this group and that group and this group, these are all different aspects of our negative perception. This section of the Torah, this story, of this amazing story of the spies, and the period that this story happens between the 17th day of the Tammuz and the 9th of Av. And we all know what happened on the 9th of Av. We not only lost the first temple, we lost the second temple. The worst decision for the Jews have happened on the 9th of Av. But then we know that the 9th of Av is also the birthday of Mashiach. Birthday of Mashiach. When the 9th of Av comes, the Kabbalists, they say, Chag Sameach. Some people, they freak out so much on the 9th of Av. They fast because of fear. Kabbalists fast not because of fear, because they want to elevate themselves to the spiritual realm. Going ta'anit, doing a ta'anit, doing a fasting doesn't mean to suffer. It depends how you look at the ta'anit, how you look at the fasting. If you look at ta'anit as something difficult and sad and we're paying a price, then the fear has totally taken over you. But when I do fasting with the consciousness, with the perception, then when I stay away from the physicality, I'm actually lifting myself through spirituality. And then the 9th of Av, instead of being the darkest day of the Hebrew calendar, is the birthday of Mashiach. It's the brightest day of the Hebrew calendar. It all depends how you look at it. What do you want to see? So, what is this period, these 40 days of 17 of the Tammuz until the 9th of Av? Is it negative? No. Is there such a thing as negativity in this world? Not really. Does darkness has any energy by itself? No. So why we are forbidden to, we don't do anything between those 40 days. If you notice, between 17th day of the Tammuz until 9th of Av, there's no wedding, there's no engagement, we don't start anything new, and people are so afraid that, oh my God, it's a negative force. There's no such a thing. From the 17th day of the Tammuz until the 9th of Av, the energy that we call Shekhinah, the female aspect of the life force, the force that brings us protection, support us, watches over us, it goes into concealment. It goes into concealment. I always give this example. I think it's a good example, and I'm sorry I repeat it every time. You know, when a mom takes her son to school for the first day of school, imagine a 5-year-old boy is going for the first time to school, and he doesn't know the surrounding. He's holding his mommy's hand. He goes to school, and mommy walks with him to the class, and then leaves him in the class, and he says, "You stay here now. Mommy's going home." And you stay with your teacher and your children. And the mommy goes, she doesn't go home, she goes and stands behind the door to see how her son is doing. Now the son feels, oh my God, mommy's gone, I'm here. And some kids start to crying, to panic, I want my mommy, where's my mommy? And they tell the mommy, no matter how much he cries, you don't walk him back to the class. You let him be on his own. That's what happens between the 17th day of the Tammuz and the 9th of Av, these 40 days, the Shekhinah goes into concealment. She hides herself. So that power of protection is not there. The support, mommy's hand, is in concealment. She's here, but she's letting you be who you want to be. Now that I don't have the support system of the Shekhinah, I have to be careful. I have to calculate what I do. I have to behave myself. I don't want to do anything rational. I don't want to do anything irregular. I want to do anything crazy. I want to stay humble. Because the sun, they say, we have this phenomenon called the layer, ozone layer, thank you. Ozone layer that surrounds the earth. And if it wasn't because of the ozone layer, the sun can really harm every one of us. Right? During these 40 days, the ozone layer, the metaphor for Shekhinah, is into concealment. So we're receiving too much light from the sun. And we need to protect ourselves. We need to be careful. That's why we don't get into arguments. Because now the sun is shining so brightly, everything is on the surface. And that was the time when God sends these 12 spies, the Shekhinah concealed himself. Because Yahshua was the man of God, he was most humble, he was just like Moshe Rabbeinu, he actually became the leader of the Israelites after Moshe left. He gets assistant of the Yud, so he's fine. So every one of us has an option to be like Kalev, to ask for support of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, which represents the three amazing energy of Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, and then go and face the challenge, face the adversity, go and see it. Don't be afraid. Do what you need to do today. Do what you need today. You know, this amazing poet that we have, Khayyam, which talks about enjoy today, live in today, who knows what tomorrow is going to bring. And people think that Khayyam is, he was having wine. But we know the wine that Khayyam is talking about is the spirituality. It says, dwell in what you can do today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Do not worry about tomorrow. Do what you need today. Work on the things you need and can today. Don't be afraid of what is in front of you today. Do it. Don't leave it for tomorrow. This concept of Farsi that we say, کار فردا رو چی میگن؟ کار روز به فردا بذار. Don't leave your work for tomorrow. Do it now. Bring it on. Give it to me now. I want to solve my problem today. I have something to do. Bring it on today. I don't want to leave it tomorrow, because the more you push it back, the harder it gets. When you face it now, when you bring it on, you become like Joshua and Caleb, and you can lift whatever you want to live. And when you plan to do whatever you need to do, the cosmos works for you. The cosmos work for you. The flowers work with you. The branches of the grape, they become your assistant. That challenge will assist you by itself. When you face it head to head, that challenge becomes your support system. Because of what's happening in today's politics world, between what's going on in Iran and what's going on in the United States. If only these people in the government in Iran knew that they better deal today than tomorrow. They'll be one day ahead. The more they push it back, the harder it gets. The sanction will make it more difficult for them. They'll be more isolated.
They get used to it.
They get more isolated. They stay more in darkness. Now their chips becomes cheaper. Imagine if they call the government of the United States tonight, let's talk. What does it take for them to do it? Overcoming their own ego. What pushes them back to darkness? The ego. what pushes back, what pushes us back in our task is our ego. If I need to make peace with somebody, the ego says, they don't deserve it. No, wait for tomorrow. You can't do it today. It's not going to happen today. Or if you have a project and you leave it for tomorrow. If you have a plan, you leave it for tomorrow. It'll become tougher and tougher and more difficult. But when you head on today, then everything will fall into place. Even the adversary will come and help you to resolve it and to make light out of everything that is. Any question? Junai.
What's the meaning of power? Hey, or wow, yeah, you itself.
The noon?
What you or hey, why? Yeah, hey or you didn't come on the name of color and you. Another one.
I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
من دارم میگم قدرت این هی یا یود چقدر این چیه که باعث میشه که این ابراهام بود شد ابراهام سارا بود شد سارا
Yes.
یوشیا شد یوشیا شد
Joshua. Yes.
این هی چی چیزی که میاسر همه چیز و چرا این هروی اسم کالب و
Caleb نیست. اسم Caleb نیست.
نیومده
It's not on Caleb's name. No. Caleb is a simple man. Caleb is a simple man. So his question for those who don't quite understand English is, Farsi, I'm sorry, is what is the power of this Yud or a Hey? So we have this 4-letter of name of God, the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Can we have the air conditioning back on again? Is it okay?
Yeah, I want to.
Please, go ahead.
What?
So the 4-letter of Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey represents 4 different energy. 4 different energy. The first Yud is Chokhmah. Is Chokhmah. Chokhmah means wisdom. Wisdom. When you have wisdom, you have certainty. You have clarity. You know. You know the right thing. You don't need to make a mistake to learn from it. You already know. You know you have clarity. Your road is clear. You know what tomorrow is going to bring. You know tomorrow is going to be fine. You see tomorrow. It's like I made an example at the Knesset Shabbat. When you have the wisdom, when you have Chokhmah, it's like you have the GPS that tells you, hey, you're leaving Tarzana and you want to go to Orange County. It's going to take you 45 minutes because there is no traffic, or there might be an accident on 405, so it's going to take you an hour. So you have this clarity. So when you sit in your car and you're driving to Orange County, nothing is going to bother you. Why? Because you already know it's going to take you an hour to get there. You're not going to frustrate yourself. You're not going to be upset. You're not going to have anxiety, right? Because you know. That's the Yud. That's Chokhmah. That's wisdom. That's clarity and certainty. That's Yud. Hey of the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Hey represents 2 different forces. The first Hey is Binah, is understanding. It's like, oh wow, oh I know, I understand. Oh wow, I didn't know, now I know. It's knowing the bigger picture, knowing outside of the box, outside of the box, because we live inside of the box. We don't see beyond today, right? We're dwelling in whatever is dwelling today, and we get stuck because we don't have the Bina, we don't have the Hey. If I have the Hey, then I understand everything makes sense. Vav, the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Vav is 6, represents what we call Zeir Anpin, the process. When I have the Vav, I have the power to go through the process. And the last Hey is the Hey of Malchut. Is the Hey that shines from Bina to Malchut, makes my road clear. Now, you see that 2 letters are used to give to these patriots. Abraham receives a Hey, represents, he already had Chokhmah, he already had certainty, he already had clarity. When God told him, Lech Lecha, he didn't ask. He didn't ask. He didn't know where he's going, but he had certainty. He had chokhmah. He knew it's going to be good. So when his name changed from Avram to Avraham, he gained all the bina. Ah, of course. The same with Sarah. And that understanding caused Sarah to get pregnant. That understanding caused Abraham to achieve a higher level of consciousness. So the yud that Moshe gave to Joshua was the GPS, the spiritual GPS. So it was, of course, I understand. When you have these two, you can see the Malchut, you can see tomorrow, you can see everything. So you go through the process, knowing that the blood will become milk, that the bee can create with this venom that could kill you, but can create honey, something amazingly beneficiary and sweet. So these are the letters that represents different consciousness.
You said you pay,
Bob Hay.
Two hay is this year.
Yes.
So nobody deserved to get the second hay, but all of them, they got the first hay.
They all get the first hay because the last hay represents this word. The last hay is what gives us power and light to live in this world.
Oh.
That comes with every one of us. Now, a Yahudi, Yudah, which is Caleb, is from the tribe of Yahudi, that means represents every one of us. That we all have this Yud Kei Vav Kei, but there is a force in us, the Dalet, which represents ego, selfishness. That causes us not to see outside of ourselves. Because when do I see outside of myself? When I look at outside of myself. The Dalet causes you to only see yourself. You want everything for yourself. Everything is according to what you want. My perception, what I want, what is good for me. Okay.